Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, everybody. This is a very important day as there has been an agreement between Hamas and Israel for the release of hostages, and we are currently awaiting that to take place. It's extremely important. It is the very first component of the peace plan that is on the table. It's a 20-point peace plan, and once the hostages are released, and I want to underscore the momentous day that it is and will be once the hostages are released, that the remaining points will then be on the table for execution. And I've been working very closely with Secretary Rubio on the participation of Canada as well as the Arab countries in the remaining steps on the peace plan. I convened a meeting of G7 foreign ministers, for example, when we were at the United Nations recently to discuss this very matter. So the work is ongoing. We need to see a ceasefire once the hostages are released. We need to see Hamas demilitarized, and we need to see the establishment of an authority that is in place where democratic reforms relating to social welfare, such as education, can occur. But this is a step-by-step process. The first step is the release of hostages. That has been agreed to, and we should see movement imminently. En français, c'est une journée très importante à cause de le travail nécessaire entre l'Israël et le Hamas. En particulier, on va voir le retour des otages et après ça, c'est nécessaire d'examiner les points dans le plan pour la paix entre Israël et la Palestine. Donc, c'est une journée très importante, mais il y a beaucoup de travail à faire. Et je fais ce travail avec mon homologue aux États-Unis, le secrétaire Marco Rubio, avec qui j'ai parlé hier et la semaine dernière, toujours en contact avec lui. Et on va travailler avec les pays arabes là-dessus, parce que c'est nécessaire à ce temps-là de voir le progrès. And I want to underscore, Canada is making a contribution to this effort towards peace. We have been at the table with the United States. We are contributing in significant ways, including in the area of humanitarian aid. We are the third highest donor of humanitarian aid at $340 million. And we will continue to be at the table with Jordan, with Qatar, with the United States, with France and the UK and Australia, of course, but this is an effort, it's a step-by-step process, et on va continuer de voir le progrès nécessaire là-dessus.
The Prime Minister today said that along with humanitarian aid, there are other mechanisms that Canada could use to help. What are those other mechanisms? What could it look like in terms of help post-war? And there's also talks of a multinational task force as well to help with finding the remains of Israeli soldiers and hostages. Is Canada taking part in that?
It's extremely important to recognize that Canada brings to the table expertise not only in humanitarian aid and the execution and delivery of humanitarian aid, but also in governance and contributing to the establishment of sound governance in other jurisdictions. We've continually played a role in that realm, especially from a global affairs standpoint, and we are exploring all avenues, including in the area of governance of the future state of Palestine.
The transnational task force?
That's a matter that's still under discussion, and of course I want to stress that I am very much an interlocutor between the Arab countries and the United States. As well, I would add that Prime Minister Carney has been involved in these efforts as well.
Part of the discussions that is considering it.
We are part of the discussions.
En français, donc, c'est possible que le Canada participe à une force de maintien de la paix?
De quoi?
Une force de maintien de la paix, peacekeeping mission.
ce n'est pas la même chose qu'avant, peacekeeping mission. Ça, c'est un terme d'art, mais ce n'est pas la seule chose sur la table. Je voudrais souligner qu'il y a une 20-point plan maintenant et on va continuer de mettre en œuvre les points de plan. Le gouvernance est nécessaire. Le rôle de les gens qui vont servir sur le Board of Peace. Donc, il y a des étapes maintenant et je ne veux pas dire qu'on va voir une chose sans le fait nécessaire de dire la vérité. La vérité.
So now that we negotiated a plan with Hamas.
English on the peacekeeping mission, just so you're on the same topic.
So I don't want to say that when we talk about peace in the Middle East is exactly the same type of contribution that Canada has made in other countries. There is a specific 20-point peace plan on the table. The first stage of that plan, a momentous day it is for the release of the hostages, which has been something that we have been waiting for since October 7th, 2023. And then after that, Canada will be contributing in various ways. We have expertise in governance, in the delivery of humanitarian aid, being the third largest donor, and in other ways to support the various mechanisms involved in the peace plan. Prime Minister Carney and I are both heavily involved in a number of the items on the peace plan.
We negotiated a plan with the Hamas. Is the Hamas a legitimate government for you?
Hamas is a terrorist entity under Canadian law, period. Thank you.
I mean, I think we all want Israelis and Palestinians to live side by side in peace and security, and whatever extent Canada can play a role, I think that would be great.
Any suggestions?
I mean, I think... Look, I think I'd like to see the peace plan start coming to fruition. I want to see all the elements come to happen with the hostages being released and Hamas playing no role in Gaza and being demilitarized. And I think Canada has a lot that we can contribute to. I mean, we've had a long history of peacekeeping. I mean, if there are people on the ground that are going to be in Gaza helping to make sure that everyone is safe and that Israel feels more secure, I think that's a good thing. I think we're certainly providing a lot of aid, and Canada has an international role, and I think we should certainly play it. Thanks. Have a great day.
What role would you like to see Canada play in a post-conflict Gaza?
See, it's a relief that we are seeing that there is a peace plan, and I hope and pray that all the parties abide by all the conditions and there is a permanent ceasefire. But what we have seen in the last 2 years is a genocide unfolding in front of our eyes, and I think there needs to be accountability. Anyone who has committed crime based on international rule of law should be charged for that. And because we have seen loss of innocent lives. And the most important thing right now is that Canada has to make sure that humanitarian aid gets in there. People are dying of famine. So humanitarian aid has to get in, and I think whatever ICC and ICJ investigate, Canada is a signatory to it, and Canada should accept their decisions.
Do you think
So
Canada should play any role?
Canada should make sure that the rebuilding of the Gaza happens.
How?
See, first of all, we need to make sure that humanitarian aid gets in and all the parties abide by, and there is a permanent ceasefire. And then we have to get into the rebuilding of Gaza.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. What do you think Canada should play in a post-conflict Gaza?
You know, Canada has a proud tradition of being a middle power on the world stage, and I think playing a convening role, going right back to Lester Pearson. I noticed that, Norway played a role in the Oslo Accords in bringing the Palestinians and Israelis together. It's not inconceivable to me that Canada could play a similar role and offer our services to maybe assist the parties to come together and have meaningful peace talks to get at the core issues in dispute and maybe come to a lasting peace in the region.
What about with the idea of peacekeeping forces over there, Canadian peacekeeping forces?
Again, Canada has a proud tradition of peacekeeping. I'm fully in favor of that. I think that would be a really positive development.
What's the NDP position right now on Keystone XL, and should that be revived?
Well, you know, it's an uneconomic pipeline with significant environmental issues. I think that's why the American administration has failed to approve it on a number of occasions. And I think it's counter to the argument I hear, which is we should be reducing our integration with the United States economy. And part of that is the idea that we shouldn't be selling oil and gas to the United States because we get a discounted price. So it makes no sense to me on an economic or environmental basis.
And in terms of an Alberta to British Columbia pipeline, which Daniel Smith wants to see, should there be any exemptions for tankers, despite the tanker ban, if it's seen in the national interest?
You know, that's way too hypothetical, way too many ifs in that question. I mean, there is presently a tanker ban brought in by the Liberal government, by the way. You'd have to consult local Indigenous peoples, and of course the province of British Columbia has jurisdiction over their own natural resources, which includes the coastline. So I'm going to leave those discussions up to Premier Eby and Indigenous nations, and we'll wait till there's a serious proposal, if any, whenever it comes. Thank you.
What's going on over there, and how do you think the Canadian how do you think the Canadian government should be involved in a sort of post-conflict Gaza?
Well, I think you've heard the Prime Minister on it. I think it's very much a moving target insofar as how do you assure proper governance in Gaza and reconstruction in Gaza without the involvement of Hamas in an area that's been almost utterly destroyed. So right now, sadly, the discussions, despite the tentative peace process, are very theoretical. It makes us in the West seem like we're disconnected when we can't even recognize that there's some very basic things that need to happen before we can even get to that stage. It's an important question, but I think what you see with the people on the ground is they almost think that Western powers are naive because they're not living the atrocity and horrors that are their own, their children, their friends, their families are living on a daily basis. So however Canada can help, whether it's providing support in democratization, providing actual physical support, the expertise, contribution of forces, however Canada can best push forward the peace process, and I think that's important.
And immediately, what do you think we could do?
Well, I think we have to watch and see how the peace process. We've had a number of these tentative starts to the peace process. Both sides have an obvious lack of trust, and there has to be that important demilitarization to make sure people are safe, and we can start with the basic things of getting food and water and shelter over people's heads. Those are priorities.
On a completely different subject, what do you think of this Quebec Constitution idea?
Look, any province can put forward a piece of legislation, including a constitution, within its competency. That our constitution is quite clear about that. I've glanced through it briefly. I want to respect the Quebec government's and the National Assembly's ability to debate that, but the Constitution is a formative document for society, so it has to talk about a number of things that I would look for: respect for minority rights, respect for Indigenous rights in particular. I've glanced through the piece so far. Other than the preamble, I don't see a ton of references to Indigenous rights, including the rights to the land. So that'll be an important consideration in reviewing it. Though I do want to let the National Assembly have its discussion. There's a political flavor to it, and you can tell by the theme and the tone of it. Identity politics pays off, unfortunately, sadly, for some parties, and that's the reality of it. But again, back to my basic point, any province, whether it's Nova Scotia or Quebec, Alberta, BC, can propose its own constitution within its competencies.
Do you think Mr. Legault is motivated by election timing to introduce this?
Oh, I think 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
Great performance in QP today, by
Thank
the
you.
way. But I want to ask you, what do you make of the Quebec Constitution?
Oh, I haven't. As my colleague Mr. Guilbeault mentioned, The first thing to do is to take note of that. So to read the document, I haven't read it yet. I don't know what's inside. So we'll read it first, and then we'll find out.
What do you make of the timing of its introduction?
Well, that's that's a good question. Somehow it comes in the last year of the CAC government. Is that a coincidence? I let you take your conclusion. If it's the timing is yeah, the timing is what it is.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.